It's Thursday, April 13th. In the headlines in local news, Jamaica joins Mexico's fight against substandard gun trade. In business news, gas and diesel prices are up. In regional news, PM plans meeting with Haiti's opposition leaders. And in sports, under-20 reggae girls versus Anguilla on Friday. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I am Maya Changa. Jamaica has long recognized the high percentage of gun-related crimes in the country. Statistics show that in 2020, the homicides by firearm rate for Jamaica was 37.7 cases per 100,000 people in the population. Although Jamaica's homicides by firearm rate has fluctuated substantially in recent years, gun crimes, especially instances of the use of high-powered rifles, continue to impact Jamaicans' sense of security. With that in mind, the government has joined Mexico in its fight against a major source of firearms in the region. Simone Absalom Gale reports.
In 1990, 50% of all reported murders and 57% of all robberies involved firearm use. In 2000, those proportions had increased by 61%. Fast forward to 2022, where the Andrew Holness-led administration has been implementing states of emergencies supplemented with tougher legislations and social intervention programs, leading to the Statistical Institute of Jamaica reporting a decrease of 6% by October of that year. However, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, says the plan is to join forces with other countries to stem the flow of guns to the region.
In the same way that, quote, Western governments had declared an international war on drugs, in the sense of pulling all their resources, all their vigilance, and all their mechanisms and levers of power to try to restrict them.
According to Minister Johnson-Smith, it's with that in mind that the government of Mexico invited Jamaica and other countries negatively affected by international trafficking in guns to support its filing of an amicus curiae brief against U.S. gun manufacturers.
The government of Mexico had filed this suit against well-known gun manufacturers in August 2021. Their case was kicked out on a technicality, and it is now on appeal. And it is now that ourselves and 5 other CARICOM members have joined this amicus brief, which means you're friends of the case. So the government of Jamaica does not bear any financial responsibility for the prosecution of the case, but we do have the ability to include our position in respect of the relationship between illegal guns and our murder rate and our shooting rates in Jamaica.
She says a ruling in favor of Mexico will cause gun companies to implement procedures that will constrain the ease with which persons can traffic arms.
We would just restate the position that the case is not against the government of the United States of America. It is not in respect of the U.S. or rather Americans' constitutional rights to bear arms or to purchase arms. It is against gun manufacturers and the practices which they undertake in their trade of and sale of guns.
Minister Johnson-Smith was addressing a post-cabinet press brief on Wednesday. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Simone Absalom Gale.
The Housing Agency of Jamaica, HAJ, is set to deliver 866 housing units this financial year. According to the 2023-2024 public body's estimates of revenue and expenditure, HAJ expects to deliver 521 units and 345 units from its St. Catherine Estates, Bernard Lodge, and Edmund Ridge St. James joint venture projects, respectively. The HAJ will also collaborate with the National Housing Trust, NHT, to construct 126 units in densely populated inner-city communities. 24 of these units will be for residents who were affected by a fire in 2019. Can treated water be used to fight fires? That is what is being considered by the National Water Commission, the NWC. Access to treated wastewater to fight fires will ensure that water remains available to the nation's firefighting unit, particularly during periods of drought. Acting Corporate Public Relations Manager of the NWC, Delano Williams, says in situations where large volumes of water are needed to extinguish fires, the NWC will move with urgency to facilitate the demand without compromising customers. He noted that the JFB has access to the Mona Reservoir, which is one of the NWC's largest raw water storage facilities. And it's now time for the Business Report with Danita Rodney.
Motorists should see an increase at the pumps in the price of gasoline effective Thursday, April 13, according to the latest ex-refinery costs from Petrojam. With both grades of gasoline up by $3.06, 90-octane gasoline will sell for $177.31 per liter, while 87-octane will sell for $173.23 per liter. After an increase of 25 cents, automotive diesel fuel will sell for $187.62 per liter. Ultra-low sulfur will sell for $198.47 per liter, and kerosene for $198.67 per liter. Propane liquid petroleum will sell for $66.18 per liter, up by 29 cents, and butane liquid petroleum will sell for $74.04 per liter after an increase of $1.20. Remember, marketing companies and retailers will add their respective markups to the announced prices. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, predicts Jamaica's economy will grow by 2.2% in 2023, a figure which is slightly lower than the 4% forecast for the previous year. According to the IMF's overall review, the baseline forecast is for growth to decrease from 3.4% in 2022 to 2.8% in 2023 before stabilizing at 3% in 2024. Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Wednesday, April 12, the US dollar sold for an average of $153.32. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $112.88. The pound sterling traded for $190.18, and the euro sold for $168.40. In GSE trading, the GSE index advanced by 2,379 points. The junior market index declined by 4 points. The combined market index advanced by 2,170 points, and the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 1,027 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 109 stocks, of which 48 advanced, 49 declined, and 12 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Access Financial Services Limited, and Barita Investments Limited. Stocks declined for AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited, and Caribbean Workers of Jamaica CCU Deferred Share. Trading firm were Blue Power Group Limited, Elite Diagnostic Limited, and Epley 7.5% preference shares due 2024. The overall volume leaders were Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with over 4 million units, Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial, and Stanley Motor Limited ordinary shares with over 2 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Calypso Macro Index Fund posted a volume of 927 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Epley Caribbean Property Fund, the Value Fund, was a volume leader with over 30,000 shares. They were followed by Cave Shepherd and Company Limited, which traded 10,000 shares, and Insurance Corporation of Barbados Limited, which traded over 1,000 shares. In regional business, Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, says the construction of the BP Shell solar project would benefit the country significantly, where natural gas saved from power generation could sell on the petrochemical market. More in this report.
Dr. Rowley noted that it is important for the country to take this necessary step as the world transitions to solar energy.
If this project was in Tobago, it would have satisfied 100% of the electrical power consumption in Tobago. That is the scale of this project, even though it's just about 10% of our national consumption.
When constructed, the Prime Minister said government would have to make changes to the regulations to allow both businesses and residences to feed back into the power grid.
Be it at businesses or at homes, that the arrangements are made to encourage them to sell their surplus power into the grid. And what that will do is contribute to the reduction in generation at the Tech Power Gen end, and see everybody in Trinidad and Tobago who is prepared to make that investment contributing.
And Public Utilities Minister Marvin Gonzalez noted that the project will supply a significant amount of power while also reducing this country's carbon footprint.
It involves the construction of this 92.22 megawatt solar plant in the vicinity of Lisbrecht and Castle and 20 megawatt solar plant in Orange Grove. The estimated energy expected to be delivered to the electricity grid from both plants is approximately 265 million kilowatts per hour per year. This will in turn reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 150,000 tons annually.
Dr. Rowley said he is confident battery and solar energy will become cheaper in the coming years, pointing out that by then TNT would have already been a part of this type of technology.
In international business, U.S. stocks ended lower after minutes from the Federal Reserve's March policy meeting revealed concerns among several members of the Federal Open Markets Committee regarding the regional bank liquidity crisis.
The three major U.S. stock indexes seesawed throughout the session Wednesday before closing in negative territory. This after minutes from the Federal Reserve's March policy meeting showed some members had concerns about the regional bank crisis and a report that indicated inflation was cooling. The Dow closed down 0.1%, the S&P 500 fell 0.4%, and the Nasdaq fell nearly 0.9%. Some members of the Fed considered not raising interest rates, according to the minutes from March. While consumer prices grew less than expected, the so-called core rate, which excludes more volatile food and energy prices, remains higher. Here's Pence Financial Management Chief Investment Officer Dryden Pence.
Some of the members thought, hey, maybe we can hit the pause button, but everybody else, I think, is still moving towards looking at possibly another 25 basis points rate hike coming up. And the staff still is predicting a mild recession in the back of the year. So against that backdrop, you have the CPI data that has just come out, which is directionally correct and it's helpful, but still core is awfully sticky. So you have headline now below core, and core is very sticky. And I think that's what the Fed is going to look at. They still have a lot of work in front of them. And the question is when we hit a pause, then it's how long do we stay there?
Financial markets have priced in about a 70% likelihood of another quarter-point interest rate hike at the conclusion of the Fed's policy meeting next month. The next market-moving catalyst is likely to be first quarter earnings season, which kicks off on Friday with results from Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, and Wells Fargo. One stock mover of note, American Airlines, which sunk 9% after saying first quarter profit would come in below market expectations because of high labor and fuel costs.
In market data for oil prices were stable as the market weighed the prospect of tight supply against possible recession in the United States, the world's largest oil consumer. Brent crude edged down 22 cents to $87.11 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate slipped 20 cents to $83.06. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Denita Rodney.
Regional news. In the Bahamas, Prime Minister Philip Davis is planning a meeting with international stakeholders, including members of the opposition in Haiti, to discuss the ongoing issues that plague the country. Joshua Williams has those details.
As chair of CARICOM, Prime Minister Philip Davis says a meeting with stakeholders will help to seek out solutions for the ongoing crisis in Haiti. Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell telling reporters the Prime Minister has begun meeting with foreign diplomats to formulate a plan in the lead-up to that meeting.
The American Undersecretary of State for Western Hemisphere, who's the man who's in charge of U.S. policy toward the region, Brian Nichols, was here on Monday, had a meeting at the National Stadium with the Prime Minister and public officials here in the Bahamas with a view to seeing where that project is now going.
Mitchell also had this to say about who will be sitting at the table.
We've spoken to opposition figures in Haiti. Several of them have agreed to a meeting outside of Haiti. We're trying now to fix a date. We're also trying to broaden the numbers of people who are participating in such a meeting. We agreed that we ought to draft something that plots a plan going forward to see whether there can be an agreement on that. We're not yet there on all of these various issues, but there's been some progress.
As for where those meetings will take place,
possibly in Kingston, Jamaica, maybe Nassau. So there have been ongoing discussions about trying to get that together.
Mitchell says more will be revealed soon about those meetings.
Barbados and the region have been assured by a senior official of the World Bank that the international institution will continue to provide resources through its various programs to ensure resiliency in food production. The commitment was given by the alternate executive director for Canada, Ireland, and the Caribbean at the World Bank Group, Christopher Sinclair.
It is something for which we are much troubled, but much charged to address relative to the capacity of our citizens, particularly those most vulnerable, to be able to manage and to sustain themselves from day to day. And since most of our Caribbean territories are net food importers, that is, we import most of what we consume, even in the productive process we have to import. It means that if these conditions continue unabated, and in some instances they're likely to become exacerbated over time, that the challenge of providing for feeding our people, providing for and ensuring that our productive levels or levels of production are kept at reasonable levels to sustain our societies, that we will have tremendous challenges going forward. Or mega trends relative to the impact of the external exogenous shocks that have come: pandemic, the Russia's war in Ukraine, and its spillover effects, of course, high interest rates, and then the ever-present dangers of climate. And these have affected many things. In particular, they have affected what we know now to be our food security, or as someone is saying, insecurity.
Caribbean countries hope to slash a U.S. $6 billion annual food import bill by 25% by 2025, and Guyana's president, Dr. Irfan Ali, says public and private investments amounting to at least U.S. $7.5 billion are needed to help the region achieve that goal.
We are already saddled with the heavy debt burden. We are already saddled with the cost of climate adaptation and the high costs of financing globally. These are important constraints that we must take into account as we address this issue. Now, if we are to achieve the 25 by 2025 target in a very conservative way, the investment from the public and private sector needed would be about $7.5 billion US.
That was the daunting reality presented by Guyana's president, Dr. Irfan Ali, when he spoke at the Caribbean Leaders Dialogue on Tuesday. Though the challenges facing the Caribbean community are many, the president, however, noted that there is collective support for the region's ambitious food security agenda and that much-needed plans are unfolding.
Right now, we are focusing on the preparation for the launch of the first regional food hub here in Guyana that will be linked to Barbados, because we have decided that we are going to work aggressively with those who are ready to push forward. That is, the leaders have addressed this. So Barbados, St. Vincent, the Trinidad and Tobago, we are working on many different initiatives to see how we can advance this agenda in a very rapid way.
CARICOM is pursuing revitalized efforts to cut the region's multi-billion-dollar annual food import bill by increasing regional food production. These efforts are led by Guyana, with President Ali as the lead head for agriculture in CARICOM's quasi-cabinet. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Fishani Ragabir.
The ceremony has been faithfully taking place in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre for nearly 2,000 years, attracting Christians and not only from around the world. This year, after many attempts made in goodwill, we are not able to coordinate with the Israeli authorities, as they are enforcing unreasonable restrictions on access to the Holy Sepulchre, more so than last year. These heavy-handed restrictions will limit access to the Christians to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and to the Holy Light ceremony.
The Israel police have been working extensively in order to ensure the freedom of worship for all those arriving to the holy sites. We are limiting the crowds and ask that public please respect the orders of the police in order to ensure the safety for all those that have received pre-approvals from the church leaders themselves.
We will hold the ceremony as customary for 2 millennia and invite all who wish to worship with us to attend. With that made clear, we leave the authorities to act as they will. The churches will freely worship and do so in peace.
We do see an increase of attacks. Not only an increase in number, but also the way the attacks are done. They're done often in broad daylight, going into churches. You know, there's no shame or even hesitation at times when it comes to these types of attacks.
Researchers are calling it a turning point in the struggle against malaria. In a global first, Ghana has approved a vaccine against the mosquito-borne disease. The United Nations says more than 600,000 people die from the disease each year. On average, 1 child dies every minute. And it's children who face the highest risk of death. Scientists at Oxford University in the UK say they've spent decades researching the vaccine. And Ghana is the first African country where it will be used, and on young children between 5 months and 3 years old. The World Health Organization is also considering whether to approve the vaccine. 200 million doses are to be produced annually. Scientists say it's a game changer in the battle against a virus that is one of the leading killers of children in Africa. Lina Abu Akleh, Al Jazeera.
The Syrian foreign minister is in Jeddah on the first such visit in over a decade. Faisal Maqdad met Prince Faisal bin Farhan. The two discussed efforts to find a political solution to the Syrian crisis. Now, the kingdom supported Syria's opposition at the beginning of the civil war in 2011. It closed its embassy in Damascus and expelled the Syrian ambassador in 2012. But relations with Bashar al-Assad's government have improved in recent months, gathering momentum after Syria's ally Iran agreed to restore diplomatic ties with Saudi Arabia. The normalization of ties between Riyadh and Damascus signals that Syria's regional isolation could be nearing an end. Well, Marwan Mishar is Al Jazeera's senior political analyst. He's joining us live now from London. Marwan, why have these links between Saudi Arabia and Syria improved?
Mostly on pragmatic basis. And by the way, in terms of chronology, the Saudi Crown Prince, since basically becoming so back in 2015, 2017 onward, he basically accepted the fact that Assad is staying, and he said so publicly, that Saudi Arabia understands that Assad is going nowhere, and basically, if he didn't lose, he kind of won somehow his little civil war. And by 2018, he's already told also the Syrian opposition that Saudi Arabia could no longer support it. So you could say that this has been going on for 5 years now, that Riyadh understood that they're going to have to come to terms with the idea that the Assad regime, despite its killings and bloodshed and so on and so forth, is here to stay. And the only reason that they've held back for so long now is simply because they were hoping that Assad would distance his regime from Iran. But as you know, Saudi Arabia is doing its own rapprochement with Iran as of the last few weeks, and hence that condition no longer really applies. And so the road to more normalization, if you will, between the two countries opened up.
In sports, Jamaica's under-20 reggae girls are set to begin their quest to win the CONCACAF Championship on Friday. The team will leave for Nicaragua on Thursday on a chartered flight for the Central American country. The 20-member squad is set to face Anguilla on Friday evening. The Jamaicans are drawn in Group E alongside Honduras, Bermuda, and French Guiana. They must top the group to play in the final round with the seeded teams Mexico and the United States. And that's the news on PBC Jamaica. I am Maya Chung. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBC Jamaica. Thank you for watching.